Alright, no point in doing the intro right now. Immediately fire your gun when you get control, because if you don't, you'll get hit immediately by a zombie. It's very, very annoying. And then go ahead and swap to your shotgun, because the shotgun is going to help you get rid of these enemies. You can use your pistol if you have the ammo for it. You will get free pistol ammo inside of this bus, and you will get additional pistol ammo as you progress through Leon's campaign. But just be very careful here, because the enemies can move during these cutscenes that occur, where Leon and Helena kind of get knocked back. And on that topic, you know, that is a big problem with Resident Evil 6. It was something that first originated in Resident Evil 5 during the Excella boss fight, where the enemies can move during the cutscenes, but you can't, so they can just ambush you when you come out of those cutscenes. But in this game, it happens every single time with the cutscenes. Every single time, those cutscenes that don't have the letterboxing play, you will have moments where the enemies will just grab you once you get out of that cutscene. It is so stupid. So one of the things that I recommend you do is when you're in any kind of animation or a cutscene is playing, you need to immediately spam the roll like crazy if you want to get out of it, so that you have a better chance of not getting hit by any kind of attack. And also right here, whenever the lightning strikes, you need to slide. Seraphim17 complained about this a lot. He didn't even try to bypass any of these flinch animations that can occur when the lightning strikes by sliding or by rolling. And he made a big complaint about it. If only he knew, if only he actually spent the time to understand this game, maybe then he would actually know. But anyway, hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil 6 No Hope difficulty, no life cube lost walkthrough, and this is chapter 2 of Leon's campaign. And this whole cemetery area is one of my favorite parts of the game, because I pretty much use this as a training ground when I want to practice my counters against the enemies. And you'll definitely encounter a lot of zombies, because I believe the enemies are infinite on this section. It'll keep spawning like 2 enemies at a time. And you won't have to deal with any dogs, thankfully, once you eliminated them. But there's a counter, because I understand the timing on that. And then here's a couple of zombies. Thankfully, you don't have to interact with that door that has the marker on it. You can just immediately run for the door that you need to interact with in order to progress the sequence. There's an incendiary grenade over there. And when you interact with this door, you're going to trigger a dog. And you need to kill that dog because he has a key in his mouth. And you need the key to exit the cemetery. So there he is. There's some free pistol ammo inside of there. So grab it. And then we're going to chase this dog. And be very careful, because there's a lot of zombies and there are a lot of dogs. You definitely need to get rid of the dogs if you want to kill that dog effectively. Because if you try running for that dog immediately, you're going to get a bunch of dogs chasing you, and they will absolutely demolish you. I mean, this can be easily bypassed if you just go prone, because it can't hit you while you're prone, but then you have the other zombies getting in the way. It's pretty dangerous if you don't get rid of these enemies early on. And while you're progressing through the cemetery area, make sure you stay on the path. If you deviate off the path, there's a chance you might run into a hole. And if you get near the hole, you'll go into a camera animation where the character will just fall in, and there's a chance there's a zombie inside of the hole, and it will grab you immediately. So you gotta be very careful of that. So just deal with these dogs right now. The moment you see a dog, just lie on the ground, and then just finish them off with the shotgun. Very simple. If you have any zombies nearby, get rid of them as well, because they can still grab you if you're on the ground. There's that guy right there. Thankfully, he's not going to be the guy who grabs you. He's just the guy who's going to use his melee weapon, and I did a successful counter just then. Because the counter is awesome, and it feels very rewarding on this game. AI's been a bit of trouble right there, but I saved her. Chapter 2 is a little bit harder than Chapter 1. Chapter 1 was kind of a beginning chapter. This one, the game kind of ramps up in difficulty a little bit. For one thing, you're going to be fighting a lot more Bloodshots, and then you're also going to be fighting a lot more Shriekers. And there may be some tricky environmental hazards that might be very difficult for a beginning player, but I'll definitely go into detail when they do occur. And right there, this is something important you need to know. If you just try picking up the key normally, Leon will have to do this long animation of just picking up the key. I mean, you're completely invulnerable while it's happening, but you don't want to be stuck in an animation where you're trying to go for keys. So one of the best methods of picking up key items is to either roll into them or just go prone. And you will completely skip the animation. You can immediately start running when you pick up the key item. And that is the end of this sequence right here. And coming up is going to be the first moment of Resident Evil 6 on Leon's campaign where you're going to split. Because Leon's going to get separated because the zombie's going to attack him. And you have to reunite with Helena. And there's a lot of Shriekers inside of this cemetery area here. And Leon isn't the best when it comes to dealing with Shriekers. Helena is significantly better because she can at least knock over the Shriekers with her running attack. But there's the moment where we get separated. Helena has to deal with dogs on her side. Leon has to deal with Shriekers. I mean, as long as you can get to the Shriekers before they get a chance to fully finish the animation of them pumping their air, you're gonna have no problems with them whatsoever. Even if you do take damage from these guys, it's not gonna drain the full life cube, so that's completely excluded. I mean, the moment I just lose one life cube, I'm gonna have to restart the checkpoint, and I had to restart the checkpoint several times on this chapter because of silly mistakes. There's that guy. He's gonna get the attack out. But right there, that is important. Did you notice how I dodged backwards? Or I just did a dodge in general, and he didn't cause me to go into a very long flinch animation? That is the best way of recovering from that animation whenever the Shrieker stuns you. You just need to dodge, and instead of just making you flinch, you'll just get knocked back, and it's a significantly faster animation to recover from as long as you're holding the aim. Man, and instead of just dealing with these guys, I'm just going to make a run for it. I'm not going to stay in an area for so long just trying to eliminate a bunch of pointless enemies. I really don't see the point in that. But we've reunited with Helena, and now the big encounter is going to begin. And this is a pretty challenging encounter for beginning players. Seraphim17 struggled with this section a lot. But, I mean, why would he not struggle with this section? It's just him. You know, guy claims to have played Resident Evil 5 longer than I have, and I bet he's going to say the same with Resident Evil 6, yet he plays it like a toddler. He plays both games like a toddler and like a first-time player. Like, where he has the audacity to come up with a statement like that is beyond me. But for all I know, he probably is saying those statements to protect his ego. He doesn't like to be wrong. That's the only thing I can think of as to why he would say such a ridiculous statement when his gameplay doesn't back up his statement whatsoever. And like I said, it was one of the funniest, most meme-worthy comments I have ever heard from him in so long. And I'm never going to stop bringing it up when the opportunity presents itself. But we're not doing this section right now. There are a lot of zombies coming at you on this first phase. And then on the second phase, when the church bells start ringing, you're going to get bloodshots and shriekers. And mind your surroundings, mind all the enemies. There's a chance that there may be an enemy doing a jump attack on you, so you got to pay attention. Try your best to use the iframes to your advantage. Try to counter when you can. Whenever you see an enemy with a melee weapon, try to do the quick shot and then just do the normal melee. Because anytime an enemy has a weapon, if you just do the normal context-sensitive melee attack on them, it will always kill them. Unless they're a zombie that has increased health, because there are certain sections on this game where the zombies have increased health, so they can sometimes not be killed by attacks that should always kill zombies. And I don't know why those kind of sections exist. There's a section like that in Chapter 2, and I'll bring it up when it does appear. But the church bells have started ringing. Now the bloodshots and the shriekers are coming. You gotta make sure you're dealing with the bloodshots. Whenever you see any zombies that are red, it means they will turn into a bloodshot whenever you do a very specific attack on them. There are ways to stop them from transforming, but I'm not too sure which method is consistent in actually preventing the red zombies from transforming into bloodshots. But I think if you just kill them with the shotgun, with a quick shot, it should always guarantee that they will never transform into bloodshots. I think when you're doing a pistol-only run, one of the ways to stop them from transforming is to just finish them off with the pistol. I think if you try killing red zombies with the melee, it will cause them to transform every time. But I think if you just aim at their stomach and just unleash a full barrage of pistol ammo at them, I don't think they'll transform. I don't know if this is true or not. I'd have to confirm with Fascinator. I think he'll know how to stop the red zombies from transforming. But we'll see. And be very careful with the cutscenes that play. When that cutscene appears, it doesn't mean the section is over. The section's still going on, but always roll after those cutscenes, because the enemies are still moving during those cutscenes. And there's a Shrieker. You definitely want to try to ambush the Shriekers when they spawn, because most of the time their air sac is completely full. And of course, when their air sac is full, you can shoot it, and it will just kill them instantly, because that's their weak spot. And I'm trying to use an incendiary grenade to stun a bunch of bloodshots, because the incendiary grenade is a guaranteed stun on these enemies. There's a Shrieker. I dodged backwards, and he caused me to get knocked over, but not go into a flinch animation. There's a counterattack. Like, this section, it works really well, and Seraphim17 was like, oh, Resident Evil doesn't know how to do these sections properly, these kind of moments where you're forced to fight. Like, he made mention of, Civilian Checkpoint from Resident Evil 5, which was Chapter 1-1, and he tried comparing that section to this section, and he just noted that they were really bad sections. There's a flinch animation that occurs when you get stunned by the Shrieker normally, That's very dangerous, because the enemies can attack you during that animation. But I got out of it, and I'm trying to use the pump cancel trick with the shotgun to get rid of the Shrieker. And it at least helps. But back to what I was saying. Why on earth would he say Resident Evil's not good at doing these kind of sequences? Do I look like I'm struggling right now? It's all because he just sucks at these sequences. He just sucks at Resident Evil 5, he sucks at Resident Evil 6, and he has not put the time in to actually learn those games properly. And I know you're probably like, why are you just wasting your time talking about this one guy who seems pointless? Well, he's not pointless in my mind. Like, he's a guy who inspired me to look at games differently, and when he's just looking at a game like this from an average mindset of a typical individual, it's something that has to be noted. It's something that I have to make mention of. Especially when he decides to say such comments like he did when he claims to have played Resident Evil 5 and 6 longer than I have. Like, it has to be said. But once that sequence is done, we have a quiet moment right now. We're just doing some puzzles right now. In the classic Resident Evil fashion, only this isn't too bad whatsoever. The only threats we'll be encountering in this part of Chapter 2 is a statue trap that will fire crossbow bolts at you and a bunch of zombies. And then we will have to fight the Lepotitsa inside of this area once we complete the puzzle and open the way to the laboratory. And the Lepotitsa is a boss fight that Seraphim17 absolutely hates, but once again it is due to his own ignorance and the fact that he just doesn't know how to do that fight properly. And as I already mentioned in the previous video, the Lepotitsa isn't a problem whatsoever. If you stay close to the Lepotitsa after eliminating all of the zombies, it will only ever do the grab move, and you can just pretty much finish that boss off with just a knife. And that is a statement that Seraphim17 got wrong in his walkthrough. He said that the zombies that spawn during the Lepotitsa boss fight are infinite, but they actually aren't. They do stop spawning after a certain number of kills. So you can use that to your advantage when it comes to dealing with the Lepotitsa. But we're about to deal with the statue trap right now. And this first part here is not too bad. It's just introducing you to how you're supposed to deal with these statue traps. All you gotta do is press the button that's at the base of the statue. You're completely invulnerable during that animation, so you can use that to get past any crossbow bolts if they happen to come your way. And that's done. And you can tell how many statues are left based on the number of flames that appear, because you notice the flames had disappeared when I interacted with the buttons. And then this is the final part with the statue traps. This might be a little bit hard for a bunch of beginner players, but it's not too bad in the slightest. I believe these statues do come out of the same walls every time, so if you memorize the spawn, it's not too bad. But even without memorizing the spawn, this isn't too bad. Because if you're just using your roll correctly and you're using the iframes correctly, it's not a problem. But can you imagine if these traps were in the older Resident Evil games? I don't think you'd survive. Maybe you would, because the statues thankfully don't have hit scan based weaponry, they have projectile based weaponry. And they take roughly 3 seconds to fire in between shots, and if they are very close to firing, you might as well just take a very sharp turn to the left or right to avoid the crossbow bolt, or just try to roll if you've nailed the timing. But look at this right here, I nearly get caught by a crossbow bolt. That was very close just then. But that's the end of that wave, and then the final wave is about to begin once Helena finishes dealing with her statues. And then the statue's going to spawn from there. There's going to be a couple behind me. And if you're wondering why their laser sight is green, it's because I've set my laser sight to be green in the settings. It's a nice little detail that you can adjust the color of the laser sight. In fact, I find green to be the most beneficial color when it comes to using the laser sight, because it's much easier to see where you're aiming with the laser sight when you're using a lighter color like green. When you're using red or blue, I find that at times it's much harder to see where exactly you're pointing with the laser sight. And that's why I primarily pick green as my color for the laser sight. But that is the end of that statue puzzle. Now we just gotta deal with a bunch of light puzzles. Every so often you will encounter a zombie. There's not a zombie on this part for Leon. There is a zombie for Helena on this part. There's a zombie in the second room after this for Leon, and you gotta deal with him. But that's the only threat so far. And I'm just waiting for Helena to deal with her zombie and then actually participate in this puzzle, because both players have to be interacting with these light puzzles in order to open the doors. There we go. Then the next one is up here. And I heard the zombie just then, but he was not on my side. I wonder what that was. But there's a zombie right there. I always try to bait out the grab and then just run away from it, so that they're stuck in recovery frames. And all you gotta do is just aim at the mirror. And that is the end of that puzzle. And we got them done on a Soro. Now for this part, you have to shoot a bunch of bells, and we're gonna get access to the sniper rifle. If I'm completely honest with you guys, I don't like the sniper rifles on this game. For one reason, it's because when you're aiming the sniper rifles, it's like your characters have Parkinson's. The scope sways so much. It doesn't feel realistic in the slightest. Like, look at the sway. That is not realistic sway at all. When you use Resident Evil 4's sniper rifle or Resident Evil 5's sniper rifle, the sway actually makes sense. But this game, I don't know why it sways so much. It's so cheap and really stupid. And the best way I found to just bypass that is to just switch weapons every single time you fire, so that your scope just centers at the correct spot, and you're not dealing with any of this way. And there's 5 bells you gotta shoot. You don't have to use the sniper rifle, you can use your other weapons. But I just find it better to use the sniper rifle if you're trying to, you know, keep your accuracy stat high for the S rank, because I am still trying to go for S ranks in this walkthrough, since I did the same in my Resident Evil 5 professional difficulty, no upgrade / no store walkthrough, just to deliver the best possible performance. But now that we have the Madonna of Grief, we can finally gain access to the Lepotitsa boss fight. And as I've already mentioned, Servum17 just hates this boss. In his video on his Resident Evil 6 walkthrough, it took him 9 minutes and 15 seconds to kill this boss. If it takes him that long just to kill a boss that is as simple as this, he's clearly playing the game wrong. And he was playing on professional difficulty because no hope difficulty wasn't available at the time. And even still though, he was using such very powerful skills, and yet he was taking that long to kill Lepotitsa. Really? So, a couple things to know about Lepotitsa. At the beginning, it will always do an AoE. You want to use the sniper rifle to damage it. I would have liked to have put in some knife content against this boss, but I was very focused on using the guns for some reason. I don't know why. Incendiary grenades are very good against Lepotitsa. So are remote bombs. A lot of the high-powered weapons are really good. You just gotta make sure that Lepotitsa isn't in any kind of animation. You have to make sure she's actually in a neutral state. That way she actually flinches from the incendiary grenades and the remote bombs. You need to watch out for the zombies. These guys can screw you over. And they love to use the jump attack a lot because these guys are unarmed. And the unarmed zombie will always try to do the jump attack. And I'm still trying to use the cancel trick to fire faster with each of my weapons. And it is paying off. In Servum17 completely ran out of ammo for this boss. How that's possible is beyond me. He was definitely not saving his ammo properly for his walkthrough, for sure. But I'm just clearing out the rest of these enemies. Here comes the cutscene. The enemies are still moving during this cutscene, so you gotta roll. You have got to roll immediately. That's how I didn't do it. I guess I was confident that there weren't any zombies nearby. And thankfully, a lot of these zombies drop incendiary grenades. You're gonna get a lot of incendiary grenades in this boss fight. There's a lot of shotgun ammo. You won't get a lot of sniper rifle ammo in this boss fight, unless you get really lucky with some of the drops from the zombies and from the crates. And if you use your ammo intelligently, if you use the knife intelligently, you'll have no trouble against this boss. Another thing to note about this boss is that you never want to be close to it when you shoot it. You never want to do so, because she will always do this counterattack where she will fire gas at you from the spot that you shot. But thankfully, if you shoot her in the head, she never does that counterattack. Same with the legs. Those are the two areas of the body that you can actually hit, and it will never cause a gas attack. And when you're doing the knife strategy against Lepotitsa, you need to first clear out the zombies completely until they stop spawning. And then when she comes after you, all you gotta do is bail out her grab, dodge away, and then just attack her with the knife, like aim for her head. You can choose to do the quick stab, and that's something I forgot to mention. There's a technique on this game called quick stabbing, and to quick stab, what you gotta do is you gotta hold L2, and then you need to press R2 and pull down on the left analog stick at the same time to do this really fast knife animation. It's a very effective technique. It allows you to deal so many hits in with the knife. And see, there's the gas attack. I'm shooting the belly, and it's causing the gas to be expelled from that spot, and it's hitting Helena. There's the AoE. You cannot stun Lepotitsa when she's doing that AoE, which is a little bit annoying. It's that move that that leads to the mandatory damage in Chapter 4. There's a moment where the Lepotitsa will do that attack inside of the plane in Chapter 4, and there's no way to stop it unless you're playing on professional difficulty. Because on professional difficulty, you at least have the skills available to you. If I had the breakout ability for that particular chapter, I could easily do that section without taking damage from that AoE. But as it stands, that's going to be one mandatory damage moment that I have to include in this walkthrough. But it's not a big deal. But Lepotitsa is finally dead. This is the wrong code. You're supposed to enter 210. The rest of these doors are completely pointless. One of the doors has a first aid spray, but it's on the other side of the room. There we go.
Got it.
And then the next code to get out of here is 021. You can choose to go for the first aid spray if you want to. It's like 012 and then it's like 201, I believe, to gain access to the first aid spray. But since I'm not healing on this game, or I'm never really going to find any need to heal to recover my stamina, I didn't see the point in this, so I just decided to get out of here. That, and I also wanted to get through the chapter a little bit faster because I had to restart in some of the earlier parts of this chapter since I messed up, and I wanted to get through the chapter as fast as possible to keep the S rank. But we are finally here, and now this is going to show the fact that Helena's sister was abducted by the family, which is the organization that you're dealing with in this game.
Who?
And now we just got to search for Deborah Harper, which is Helena's sister. There's a bunch of zombies in the way, so slide past this guy, run past the rest of the zombies in this room. Or I'm sorry, there aren't any zombies in this room. It's this room that actually has zombies. You can spawn a Shrieker if you interact with 2 sinks inside of the bathrooms in this area. But I don't see why you want to do that, unless you wanted to get a free Shrieker kill. There's a zombie there. There's going to be a zombie that busts through this door, and he has a fire hydrant. He didn't try to attack me just then, so I'm just going to finish him off. We're just moving on. We're nearing the end of this. These guys will get up off the chairs, but they will just stay on there sometimes. And here's the next checkpoint once we get through this door over here. Speaking of the checkpoints, I need to talk about the checkpoints because the checkpoints work exactly the same as in Resident Evil 5, where if you just, restart the checkpoint from in-game, you'll respawn at that checkpoint. But if you leave the game entirely and then you return back to the game, you will not respawn at the checkpoint. You'll respawn from the last save point, and the save points only occur when you enter a new area after a loading screen. It's only after loading screens that you get save points, unfortunately. And not only that, but trying to make walkthroughs of Resident Evil 5 and 6, especially Resident Evil 6, because of the way the inventory system works on Resident Evil 6, is very annoying sometimes, because if you mess up and you try to restart the checkpoint, it saves your ammo at the time overall. So if you just leave the game and you respawn at the last save point, which was way before the checkpoint, you'll have the ammo that you had at that prior checkpoint. And on Resident Evil 5, you can easily correct this issue because you can manage your inventory without having to be in the game. But on Resident Evil 6, there's no way to manage your inventory. So trying to make a walkthrough of Resident Evil 6 can be really annoying. You have to commit to the chapter. You can't just simply leave the game entirely. The only thing you can do is not restart the checkpoint, but you can just die out and then hit no on the continue screen to go back to the main menu, and it won't save your progress. It'll just keep the inventory that you had at the last save point, not the last checkpoint. And that's what I had to do in my Resident Evil 5 walkthrough, unfortunately, when I made a mistake, because I tried to make the run look as clean as possible, so I would heal myself, I would hit no on the continue screen, and I would just restart the game from the last save point because it had the correct ammo at that particular save point.
Come on, Helena. We gotta activate this thing.
And just in general, I wish there was a way to manage your inventory. I mean, the reason why they don't let you do it is because of the way the ammo works on this game. Each player gets their own ammo. There's no kind of sharing mechanic between each of the players when you're playing co-op together. And I guess they didn't want the people to exploit the system if that system was in this game, because then you just get a crap ton of ammo. So they didn't include it in this game. And I understand why they did it. It makes sense. But when it comes to making a walkthrough of Resident Evil 6, it can be very frustrating if you have to repeat certain chapters with the incorrect ammo that you had at the time. But back to this sequence here. Some of the zombies in this sequence have increased health. They won't die instantly from certain coup de grace or from weapon takedowns. And the enemies can move during these cutscenes as well, which is yet another reason why this part of Chapter 2 is pretty annoying. So you gotta clear out the enemies so that they're not in the way. There's a jump attack. Thankfully the jump attack is still very powerful against the zombies. I especially like how you can initiate counterattacks on enemies when they're not even trying to target you. Like if they're targeting your partner, for instance, you can initiate a counterattack on them. Really handy. Allows you to control the sequence very easily. And there's going to be another cutscene that plays once my partner gets down to where she is. And this is a completely pointless cutscene. And this cutscene is so stupid. You have no time to counter that bloodshot if you're playing as Helena. Like, I don't see how you're supposed to avoid that. Because the bloodshot will always do that jump attack during that cutscene. And it ends very quickly before the bloodshot has finished his jump attack. So you can easily get hit by it once the cutscene finishes. Which is very cheap. There's another counter. I'm just waiting for my AI partner to pull the lever. And then we can get out of here. This is a pretty long cutscene right here. So once again, during these cutscene moments, just mash the dodge button. You need to mash the dodge if you want to avoid getting hit. Sometimes it will not work, but most of the time when I've done it, I've never been hit. And there's this guy over here. There we go. But these zombies that just came down from the elevator, or whatever these cages are, I think they have a lot more health, so you can't use coup de grace to finish them off. I'm just going to use incendiary grenades on them just to get them out of the way. The good news is that once you hit these two switches, the enemies despawn entirely. You can use the generators, those sparking generators over there. You can use them to electrocute the zombies. You just got to make sure you're not standing near the generators, otherwise you'll get electrocuted yourself. But that's the end of the sequence. The enemies have completely despawned. And one cool thing I like about Resident Evil 6 is that you really understand how each of the campaigns are connected, because we've just lowered the cages even more, and when Ada comes to this section, the cages are still lowered. So it's definitely clear how the campaigns progress chronologically. On Resident Evil 2, however, you know, with the fact that they were going for like A and B scenarios, it didn't feel like your actions in one campaign affected the other campaign. And it made it very hard to establish which event came first. And, you know, I don't think that was an issue in the original Resident Evil 2, because the kind of bosses you were fighting in the A and B scenarios were different in certain parts. But on Resident Evil 2 Remake, that's not the case. You still fight the exact same bosses on the A and B scenarios in the exact same place chronologically. So it doesn't make sense which came first. And the fact that it just lacks that kind of connection between the campaigns is one of my biggest complaints with Resident Evil 2 Remake. But thankfully Resident Evil 6 doesn't have this issue. But that sequence there, I believe the enemies are infinite. I could be wrong, but I think there's just probably a lot of zombies. Maybe it's not an infinite spawn. But the Shrieker will alert those zombies and you just need to escape. And now we're down deeper into this facility. Which is not really a facility, it's just Derek C. Simmons' family tomb. Because his family line goes back quite a long way. Very interesting, the kind of environments they were going for. This game has a lot of different environments. You're one of the pros with this game. You know, it never feels like you're just in one area for such a long time. It always feels like the areas are different. It's especially cool wandering the streets of Tachi in Chris's campaign and Jake's campaign, because I like the modern Chinese architecture. Like, I remember when I played Call of Duty Black Ops 1, for instance, and I was on the Kowloon level of the campaign. That was probably my favorite level of the game. It was so creative with the environments, and then the kind of moments you were getting into. Like, I remember the moment where you just jumped from one building to another building, and it did the whole slow motion sequence. That was a really cool moment. And it was just so fun to traverse the buildings in that architecture style. And that's why I just like Tachi as an area. But your AI partner is not going to be able to defend herself. She's trying to carry Deborah right now. So you gotta protect her. Helena can still kick, and the cool thing about her kicks is that she can immediately put enemies into the coup de grace status. And right here, slide to avoid the flinch animation.
The roof is caving in.
Just keep moving.
Leon, help!
There's a zombie right over here. That guy almost caught me out. The zombies that are on the ground are so hard to see sometimes. Those are the guys that catch me out a lot of the times. And I'm going to do a really cool context-sensitive melee attack using the environment. Because when you're above or below an enemy, like this, you can do these melee attacks, and it is so cool. The fact that they let you do this is awesome, because why would you not be able to do this? You know, there's so many ways to experiment with the environment and with the melee system on this game. Like, this is honestly the most advanced melee system I've ever seen. I mean, SHAREfactory disagrees, unfortunately, because I remember in his Resident Evil 5 walkthrough, he was comparing the combat of Resident Evil 6 to a game called Vanquish, which was a game made by Shinji Mikami, who, if you don't know, was the creator of Resident Evil 4 and the Resident Evil series entirely.
Helena, where are you?
But, I mean, I watched Vanquish's gameplay. Vanquish does have some pretty good gameplay, but it doesn't feel as advanced as Resident Evil 6. So I don't even know what SHAREfactory is talking about, but once again, that definitely shows his complete ignorance of Resident Evil 6's combat mechanics. Like, there's just a lot more experimentation involved with this game compared to a game like Vanquish, even though Vanquish has some pretty unique combat. And I remember the game was lauded for so many awards for just being a very fast and frenetic game. But, yeah, I'd have to disagree with SHAREfactory's statement that Vanquish has a significantly better combat system. Like, just count the amount of different things I have done in the combat so far. I guarantee it will feel a lot more diverse than the kind of things you're doing in Vanquish. Like, for the most part, that game is entirely heavy on the guns. There's no kind of melee. Like, the only melee you have is just that one super kick. But this game, the melee just feels a lot more advanced, and the combat feels even more advanced. The evasive maneuvers you're doing feel even more advanced. But I'm not saying Vanquish is a bad game. Maybe I should actually download Vanquish for the PS3 to see if it's actually as good as it is. Because I saw SHAREfactory's walkthrough of Vanquish, and it was a really good walkthrough. It was definitely one of his best walkthroughs, and he definitely showcased Vanquish at its best. Yeah, it'd be really cool to see what that game is like. But we're now having to encounter Mutated Deborah. And Mutated Deborah isn't so bad. SHAREfactory completely struggled with Mutated Deborah. And once again, how do you struggle against a boss like this is beyond me. Because Deborah is very easy so long as you're skillful on your timing with the counters. Because you can counter Deborah's jump attack, and it'll put her into a down status where she has her weak spot exposed, and you can do a quick time event on it. And just completely decimate her HP value. And you're also with Ada as well. And Ada is gonna kind of help, but for the most part, the AI in this game is not that good. You know, so many people say that the AI is a significant improvement to Resident Evil 5's AI systems, but Fascinator and I completely disagree. The AI on this game is, for the most part, completely invisible, and you barely notice their actions. I mean, there are times when they do kind of help out, or they participate in melee attacks, or they just kind of praise and thank you for doing certain actions, but that's it. And for the most part, the AI on this game is just not going to be that helpful, and for the most part, they're very slow to try to revive you on this game compared to Resident Evil 5. And then the whole combo attack system, they're not going to participate that much with the combo attacks. But this is it right now. Use the barrels to stun Deborah when she goes to try to attack you. You'll know she's about to attack you because she kind of yells at you. And then when she's down, do the quick time event. Mash X and then press R2. And then run away from her because she will immediately do a get away from me attack where she just kicks you away. And then she exposes all of her weak spots, so just destroy one of them. She will put them away. Then she's going to jump around, wait for her to yell, and then just counter her jump attack. She's doing it right now. It's very strict on the timing, but when you nail it, it is very rewarding. And that is the end of the boss fight right there. Did I struggle with this boss fight? No. But I will say, though, that if you don't go for the counter, it's very dangerous trying to encounter Deborah when she's on the ground with you. Because her attacks can pretty much cover the entire length of this arena. I did see Fascinator showcase a strategy that does kind of work if this happens, where if you just go prone, or like you just lie down on the ground, Deborah can't seem to do damage to you. You do kind of flinch, but you don't take any kind of damage whatsoever. Very odd that it works like that, but it's a very effective strategy just in case you're not good at dealing with Deborah. She stays on the ground at varying rates. Like, sometimes she'll stay on the ground for a short time, other times she'll just stay on the ground for a longer time than usual. There's no consistency to it. That's why I just recommend going for the counters. Practicing the counter system on this game is going to make you a more effective Resident Evil player. Like, why Serm 17 didn't try to use the counter system at all? Like, even the prompts for the counter were appearing. Like, he even did some counters on accident. He even acknowledged it in one of his videos. But even still, though, despite his awareness of the counter system, he never tried to do it, and I don't understand why. I even saw on a YouTube comment on one of his own videos that he likes the counter system on Resident Evil 6. But if that's the case, why did he not demonstrate it in his walkthrough? Like, why were there not any moments when he decided to use the counter system intentionally? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It is such a disconnect that doesn't make any sense. But we got past those zombies. Bear in mind, do not go through that sequence too fast. There is a moment during that sequence where a bunch of wooden beams will just fall and kill a bunch of zombies, but if you go near those zombies, it will do damage to you. I should have acknowledged it, but I'm sure you saw where the wooden beams fell. So be very careful of that part. So now all we have to do is roll the minecart into position and reunite with Helena and Ada. And this quick time event right now, any quick time event that involves you having to rotate the analog, use both of the analog sticks. It's not just limited to the left analog stick. If you use both the analog sticks, you'll do these quick time events significantly faster. The game doesn't tell you this, and I wish it did, because there are certain quick time events that demand you use both of the analog sticks. Like, for instance, the door sequence in Chapter 2 of Jake's campaign. You know, that final door sequence where you have to open all of those doors. That sequence is very, very strict on the time it takes to open those doors. Because if you hesitate for too long, you're gonna get killed by Ustanok.
This isn't you.
But there's Deborah again. This is not really a fight. You don't have to actually shoot Deborah. All you gotta do is just time her out, and she'll eventually go away. And you have to repeat this 2 times. So here's the first time. To avoid getting flinched, just lie down on the ground. But she's gonna get up. You can still choose to lie down on the ground if you want to. The only attack you gotta worry about when you're lying down on the ground is a vertical slam, which is this. But she's looking at the AI right now. And she's doing it to me right now, but I gotta move. And right there, the AI nearly screwed me. So that's the one big problem with using this method. If you just want to do a more dangerous but not so annoying strategy, just use the crouch. To crouch, all you gotta do is stand still while aiming and press X. It's a lot more effective because you're not getting screwed by the AI all the time. And Deborah mainly tries to do her horizontal attack. But that's the end of that first part. Now you just gotta shoot the drum. We gotta do some more dodging of these low walls by just lying down on the ground. It's very simple, this part. There's no real challenge to it whatsoever. I'm just glad that it's the way it is. I imagine if this was actually a fight, it would probably be a really annoying fight, because, you know, trying to evade inside this minecart with your AI partners blocking you would be really, really frustrating. So I'm glad that this sequence doesn't last for too long. And once we're done with this minecart sequence, the chapter is going to end. There's only about a minute left to do, but we have to fight Deborah again. And no point in trying to shoot that explosive drum. It doesn't damage the minecart or end the sequence. But I just chose to shoot it for the heck of it. But here's Deborah. You only have to dodge like 1 attack, and then it just cues the cutscene. And that's the end of that sequence. But this is important right here. Shoot Deborah, not the weak spot. Because most of the time, when I've shot the weak spot, it never seems to do enough damage to end the sequence. And if you don't end the sequence fast enough, Helena will die. But there we go, we've done it. And that is the end of Chapter 2. Stay tuned for the future chapters of this walkthrough. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.